This is MindsEye. We're here on Xbox Series X. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So this is a very interesting game. It certainly gained itself a bit of a bad rap. There's certainly a lot of negativity around this game, and it's certainly got some interesting quirks and style to it. Now, when jumping into talking about this game, like with all games, I really do try to come into things with a bit of an open mind. And I know from the overwhelming perspective online these days, and again, I try to really have my own thoughts on things. I really genuinely do. Everyone just absolutely piles on and hates this game. And I'm going to give a little bit of a slightly different perspective on this one, and just kind of say I don't necessarily hate this. I actually kind of liked some of it. Now, you'll have to bear with me a bit so that I can talk about this game and give you an idea of everything, and, just stand with me for a little bit here while I talk about this experience and what it has to offer, and, of course, a lot of the problems that this game has. So, it is buggy, it's blurry, there's performance issues, but the game itself does technically run fine, at least on the Series X. Now you may be like, oh, but it crashes and there's all these problems. Well, actually, over a 9.5-hour play, you can watch the whole, stream of it the whole way through. I sat there and did it all in one sitting. I only had 2 crashes. So, honestly, not the worst from that perspective. And, yes, the performance does at times drop, and, it's sometimes a little sickening, almost like vomit-inducing. But, for the most part, it's very much playable. There was, one level where an AI wasn't going in the direction it was supposed to. I died, and then I was just able to continue the mission as, per usual. So if you're expecting something that is on the levels of, say, Gollum, which is a game I literally physically could not finish due to the crashes and the problems in that game, you're not necessarily getting that here. Now, this game actually does feel like a bit of something from the early 360 era, but with sort of the visual impressiveness of today. The usual UE5, lower resolution, blur, and whatnot, but you've actually got incredible density in the environment. You've got NPCs, you've got a fully modeled city that is basically Vegas, but it's not Vegas. I mean, the sphere is even over there. And, again, it's very popular to kind of hate on this one, but, if you enjoy something that feels sort of like a bit of a secret agent kind of thing, because you're flying, drones, and sometimes you're in a drone flying, and sometimes you're, a bug spying on people, and then, mixed with something like Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter from, the early 2000s, mid-2000s, this is actually kind of an interesting experience. I genuinely found this game to be kind of fascinating. The story is kind of interesting. The whole way through, I really was interested, and I wanted to know what was going to happen and where things were going to go. And I was genuinely engaged the whole way through, from beginning to end. And I felt like the story had some neat twists and turns. And your character here, basically, the game opens up. There's some kind of weird electrical event that happens to you and your drone, and you're trying to figure out, years later, what happened and what's been going on. This is a long drive to this place. There's a little bit of sections like this where it's a little padded where you're just kind of driving, but they're doing narrative delivery. But, anyways, so you're here trying to figure out what exactly happened to you and what's been happening to you and why you're having blank spells. And there's some really neat sci-fi stuff that's part of this. You're a security guard working for the big military company, and you need to get down to business and figure out what exactly is going on. And that's quite intriguing, and there's some other little things in the backdrop, and there's several different factions and different characters that kind of interact with you. And you're trying to figure out who to trust, who you can't trust, who's working you, who's not working you. And like I said, there's lots of different things going on throughout the story, which is quite fascinating. And the traffic density actually is the first game I think I've played where there's literally, it feels like real traffic and different vehicle colors and different types of vehicles and different types and looks of people too, which is quite fascinating. I didn't expect to be driving this long. We're getting to action in a sec here. I do apologize for that. I kind of picked this mission because it's a little early on, doesn't really spoil things, but also gives you a little bit of combat, but it gives you a little bit of like driving and you can see the city. So this is sort of like Mafia 1 and 2, if you've played those, where there's an open world, but the open world is more of set dressing. It's a backdrop for you to engage with and kind of drive through. That part of the game is really half-baked, so I want to get to a point basically where I'm saying this game needed an extra year of development, and I think the response for this one would have been a lot more popular. Because, like, again, it's not terribly bad. Like, the frame rate is not what I want or expect. And, like, you know, you might have some other problems here or there. But, like, it's actually a pretty impressively scaled world. The campaign should take you about at least 10 hours. And then there's some other modes. But that's the problem, too, is this game's a little half-baked on those other modes. But I want to talk a little bit about the technical element of this game. So with this being a UE5, Unreal Engine 5 title, this is a temporally scaled solution. So it's your very typical with UE5 4K, but internally it's like a changing dynamic scaling to 1080p down to like 720p. Like, it gets downright blurry at times. And it's targeting 30 FPS, but there's drops. And I think as you've been seeing, it's not necessarily terrible for performance, right? If you've been watching, it's not really that bad. There are parts where, yes, it does drop quite a bit, but it's not necessarily downright horrendous most of the time. It's actually, again, perfectly playable, which is, you know, good. Like, I've played some really, really bad games on this channel over the last few years, but this one really isn't necessarily, like, that bad from that perspective. That's where, again, I want to put out that, like, this is not a Gollum level of quality. This game is okay. It's not great. It's not amazing. It's not like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever played. But there's like a really good, I want to say, foundation here. Like, the story is actually interesting. I like the characters. I like the performances. I like the dynamics between the characters. The combat, while not like necessarily crazy, is pretty cool. So we're here, and this is a bit earlier on too. Oh, I've got all my toys. Normally you'd have like just a pistol in this section, and you get like this little drone. I don't have my drone right now, but you have like a little drone that can help you like stun guys, and then you can attack them, and you know, you get all these different weapons and tools that allow you to eliminate these enemies, and you do like little cartoony explosions, and they die pretty quickly, and you die pretty quickly, but it's decently well balanced for combat. And like I said, I think it kind of is effective enough at what it's trying to be from a gameplay perspective. Like, if you want something that's sort of like, again, a little bit campy, but with that fresh coat of like modern like UE5, where, yeah, there's actually a good amount of detail to this. Like, look at this. There's like little clutter and everything like that, and you know, it's got that sort of vibe of like a 360 era game, which isn't a terrible thing either. It's one of those games where back in that day, you know, we would have had a whole trilogy of this, and people would have been like, oh, remember the MindsEye games, they were okay. And that's kind of the vibe I want to get across here, is like, it's okay. Like, maybe it's downright terrible on other platforms. I can't speak to that. I've only been able to take a look at it on Xbox, luckily, because I wasn't even going to due to the reception and everything like that. But I'm kind of glad I came in and played it, because I liked the story. I kind of like this game. I understand the limitations it has, and I certainly realize it's not, like, the best game out there. But, like, I kind of enjoyed it. I had a fine time playing through it. I'm happy I experienced it. Which, again, probably goes really against the grain on what people are saying and everything like that. But, you know, I've played a lot of games, and I think I can kind of pick out things that are terrible. And again, like, with a year of polish, this would have been a perfectly fine and acceptable game. I don't know why they shoved this out the door early, because it clearly wasn't ready. Maybe it was a cost thing we're adding up. But, like, I think this would have been a pretty decently okay received game, like maybe even well received game, had they taken a bit more time to it. Because again, it's mostly polishing that I'm thinking is the issue here. Because it's like, yeah, performance-wise, obviously 60 FPS would be great. Maybe if this studio survives or whatever, they can do like a next-gen update in the future on a modern console and can push things a little bit better. But like, there's something here. Like honestly, like the story is neat, the characters are neat, the gunplay is kind of like easygoing and it's a little bit fun, and there's some neat stuff on this. I also want to showcase the settings here. So they do have a streamer mode that does not work. So by default, like licensed music is on, but like if you turn streamer mode on, I still got like 2 or 3 claims. We've got some different display settings like the HDR peak brightness, graphics is motion blur, vehicle camera roll, things like that. And then there's like general settings, difficulty, camera following, pretty easy going. And some HUD choices if you want to adjust how your HUD looks. Now the other part of the game too is like when you finish the game, you can unlock things like free play and stuff like that. We're gonna show that a bit off here, but you got different missions that you can do and replay all the missions. And then you've got a series of mini games. So these show up within the game as like mini game things. So like if they're like bubbles within the environment, but then afterwards you can choose them. But like free roam is really, really genuinely weird. So we're gonna load up free roam. And I don't understand this because it's very lazily done. So like you play as this random character that's literally dressed like this, that you cannot edit, you cannot change. You have like a safe house and you have like a car. I genuinely think that this was like a debug mode for something that was supposed to be a little bit more ambitious. I think they were maybe going with the idea of doing like a bit of a GTA kind of open world kind of free roam, a GTA Online kind of thing, and they kind of didn't have like the budget or something, because it's really weird. Like you can't customize this character. As far as I've seen, the time of day is just perpetually night, so you can't adjust that. Again, from what I've seen, I've like just kind of sat here for a while, kind of waiting for something to happen. Maybe I have to like trigger it or something like that. And there doesn't really seem to be a whole lot like you can necessarily do in the open world, which is a shame because like I want to. Okay, so again, something I want to really get across here is like when you're playing the story, you don't really have time to take in the world. Which I think is a big shame because it's actually really neat and it's quite large. And there's a lot going on in it. It's literally Vegas. Like if you've been to Las Vegas, like I have a few times for CES, a lot of the buildings are very much resembling actual buildings. I'm assuming from like a legal standpoint they called it, was it Red Rock, Bedrock City or something like that? So like, I think from that perspective, that's why they did this. But I was saying while I was playing and streaming the game that I'd really like to take a look at the open world, because I think it's kind of neat. It's very large and very well detailed. And that's where, again, I'm kind of coming to the point where I'm sort of like, the performance here is just abysmal, by the way. But I'm coming to the point where I'm just kind of like, it seems like they took, it's kind of like the Matrix Awakens demo, if you remember that, where they had like this large world that you could just kind of run around in and there wasn't really like stuff going on. But that's literally the thing, is that they've created this really, really expansive, detailed open world in UE5, but like you can't do anything in it, and you can't like change the time of day, and there's not like activities going on, and it's just like a bit weird because like I think the potential to do something neat here was definitely like viable. Like this could have been like a bit of a GTA type thing, but they didn't really do anything about it. So that's where, again, I'm going back to like the review type scenario here, where like from a perspective of just playing the story, that's a fine experience. That's a fine 10 hours. If you can find a way, value-wise, to kind of just play the story, I think you get an okay value. If you can find, again, that value point for story value versus, you know, how much you want to spend, blah, blah, blah. And price changes on the game over time, blah, 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 blah. Which is why I don't normally like to focus on that when I'm reviewing, because game prices fluctuate over time. I more like to think about the quality of the experiences as what it is. But, like, the story, again, if you can hit that right value, is worth playing and stuff. It's just these extra modes, I really can't fathom what was really going on. Like, it just seems like a big waste of potential. Like, I think these, like, extra modes here could have been, like, really, really cool. Like, if you could make your own character and go around and, you know, do little missions, or maybe, like, police come after you or something, or, you know, activities and stuff like that in the world. You could have had, like, a GTA Online comparable type thing. Because, again, look at this. Like, you know, performance and stuff isn't great, but GTA launched with 30 FPS. But, like, yeah, it's a big, impressive world. But it's just kind of like, it's not even lifeless. Like, there's NPCs running around, there's things going on, but, like, they didn't do anything with it. So that's what I was saying, is that, like, it kind of feels like a bit of a debug world, and it runs, like, a lot worse to free roam than, like, the regular story stuff does. I assume that's because you're visiting it. But it's really quite fascinating from a perspective of just having, like, a large, like, I don't know if we've had a UE5 open world like this to kind of visit and take in, because there's advertisements everywhere, there's trees everywhere, there's, like, glass with some level of reflectivity going on in it. Like, it's really, really fascinating. And, like, it could be, I was actually really wishing this game had an uncapped frame rate mode. If there's a developer watching this, please just add a toggle for uncapped frame rate, because this could be a really, really cool test game on future console generations. You know, just as far as, like, seeing when we can actually run this smoothly, that would be super, super cool. But look at the scale of it. Like, there's all this stuff that's happened, and it's just like a big set. And that's what I was saying, is, like, I think it's a debug mode where they were testing things, because it's large and everything's running, and there's traffic going on and NPCs, but, like, just nothing happening within the world, which is super, super weird. Can I play? I want to do something, like, a little bit. What about this? Combat drone. This will be fun, so we'll fly around in a drone. But, like, there's these little missions you can do, like little racing sequences, drone racing sequences. They send you to, like, some different areas. It's really, really quite bizarre, because, like, I think there's something here with this game. I think it's quite neat, but, like, there's definitely something a bit missing. Like, I'm playing randomly as a cowboy, so it feels like there was, like, a lot of, like, testing and playing around stuff, and they kind of just threw this into the game as, like, a bit of an extra. Like, it wasn't really thought out, and this is just, like, a bonus kind of mode that you can enjoy. And, like, it's so weird, because I know a lot of people, maybe you're still not seeing my perspective, and you're just like, oh, this game sucks, blah, blah, blah. And you know what, whatever, you can have your thoughts, and I'll have mine on stuff. But, like, for me, it's a lot of unrealized potential. If you're looking at just the main story, you get a good amount of stuff there. But, like, as far as a massive open world UE5 game, I don't think we've had anything quite like this. Like, it is really, really big. Like, there is, like, you can go to all these different places, and it's not really too bad from a perspective of, like, what's going on within it. Like, it's a full city. I think that's actually why there's maybe performance issues, is because it's, like, rendering so much of the world around you. Like, that's you literally, I could, like, go from here. I mean, maybe the mission would fail, but I can drive, like, all the way to those rocks back there and all the way over there, and it's like a fully modeled Vegas city. And then they've got all this, like, different stuff where you play as these different characters, and it seems like a lot of this was, like, testing grounds to do other things. They're like, okay, we'll make this massive open world, cool. Then we're gonna fill it with, like, a story. We're gonna have a character that you do a mission and everything like that. It seems like it could have almost been a launching point for a game where you do multiple different, like, campaigns with like different characters as like expansions over time or something. You could have kept doing that and had different, you know, experiences based on this. And that's what I'm finding so like weird about it, is literally it's not that bad if you just play the story stuff, but everything else feels so underbaked. And that's what's weird to me, is like, if they would have put just a little bit more time and effort into this, they could have had something really like interesting and special. And now it's just kind of like a big punching bag of a game for people. Which again, from a perspective of like, you know, there's some bugs and some bad performance, but like, it's actually like a pretty decently realistic game. The UE5 stuff all looks the same, let's be real here, like the rocks and the texturing, but, you know, let's not, you know, undercut the fact that this is a pretty technically fascinating game. It's something where it's like, I don't know, I'd almost come in and remaster this in like a decade or two and see what the response would be. if they can't get this running smoothly. Because, like, I do think there's something kind of there. The story was interesting and intriguing and filled with mystery, and I was, like, literally over a 10-hour time span sitting there playing. I was intrigued the whole time. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I was interested in it. I found the combat kind of fun and engaging. The different vehicles you got to do were cool. You know, sometimes you're on a turret, sometimes you're racing, sometimes you're driving these giant drones and blasting enemies and below. You know, there's crazy action. The different missions felt like there was different stuff going on. Then you'd have a sequence, like for instance on one map, where I literally flew under the world. That happened once, but it was hilarious. And it's just like, you know, it's stuff like that, again, polishing, where, like, I do understand you need to polish your game, and you need to provide something that is, like, a decent quality for players. But I think if you go in with an open mind a little bit, and you just want to work through a story that has, like, a slightly futuristic combat, some cool, like, different, like, every mission was kind of different. There was stealth missions, there was straight-up combat missions, there was driving vehicles, there was getaways, there was a little bit of an underbaked romance plot going on, with some fun little touches there as well. And, like, I like the sci-fi angle of it, I like the slightly futuristic angle of it, the city's cool to go through, the characters interacting with each other is kind of neat, there's some genuinely funny storytelling too. I had a couple laughs with some of the funny stuff. Like, for instance, at one point you're fighting in the neighborhood, and there's, like, this woman that comes out, like, kind of felt like a bit of a Florida woman kind of situation almost. We named her Deborah. But she was like, I'm tired of these people in my neighborhood. She pulls out a shotgun and starts shooting people. Also started shooting me. But, like, there really is some, like, neat little stuff in this game. And it's just, to me, it's a bit of a shame because I want to like this even more than necessarily, like, some of the issues I have with it. But I'm really trying to reinforce the thing that, like, there are problems with this game. The performance is not really acceptable. It's playable, but it's not really acceptable. The visuals and stuff, they look okay. They're blurry at times, but, you know, that's just kind of the situation in regards to, like, UE5 games and these consoles not being strong enough to handle them. That's just the reality of it. And I think almost, like, the bones of this one are okay. The potential of it's neat. It feels like they wanted to do a lot more with it, and what we're getting here is, like, really quick, like, half-baked little mini-modes. And that's kind of disappointing, because, like, I really do think people would have genuinely liked this world and its characters and what it was setting up and some of the weird mystery and intrigue, and they just didn't get a proper amount of time to really deliver on that vision, and it's such a shame, because I do think people that actually get through the story in this would kind of like it, but I think most people will sit here and look at all the bugs and be like, this is like one of the worst games ever, when really it's quite middling with these problems even. Maybe bordering on a little bit bad, and depending on the platform, maybe a bit worse, but here on Series X, like I said, I've played worse, I've played a lot of different games, and I just want to get across that, like, you can play and finish this if it intrigues you. I actually kind of like the story, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on it. and I see the problems, but I also see the lost potential in this one, and it's a bit of a shame because I think they had something that could have been pretty acceptable and buildable here, and they just didn't deliver.